There are 3 or 4 different ways to import from your external drive into Premiere to begin your editing. And I'll start with what I think is the most popular and easiest way, which is to use your media browser down here on the left-hand side of my interface or my workspace. And I'm going to navigate to my external project drive. There it is. I'll click on the down arrow to reveal. There's my folder, right? So I'll click on the down arrow, or I'll click on the arrow to make it point down to reveal. There's my Canon camera folder that I created. So I click on that. And I'm going to keep clicking. In fact, I'll click on this triangle there to point it down. And I believe this is finally the folder, there we go, that will show me the contents of that folder. And like I mentioned earlier, a lot of manufacturers do things a little differently. So you're going to have to click around a little bit before you get to this point. Once you've gotten to this point, you can now begin to import. But one thing I do want to bring up, at some point, you're going to want to double check to make sure that you properly copied everything over, or that everything was copied over correctly before you use or reuse that card. Okay, that just makes sense to me. So those cards you probably want to leave untouched for a few days, maybe a week. So you'll need extra cards, of course, if you have another project that you want to go, that you may have to go shoot, because you don't want to reuse a card if the media didn't come over correctly. Okay, so to import in this particular instance, remember I mentioned there's a few ways to do this. Well, I mean, it's pretty simple. I'll start with this video clip here. After you've previewed the clip, right, you can simply mouse click on it and drag it straight up into your project window, and there it is. It now, if I double click on it, is now officially imported into my Premiere project. And the same goes for photo. I can mouse click and drag that up into the project. Let's try it again, mouse click and drag, there we go. And there's my photo, okay? So after you've imported everything, then you can move on to the next card, or not everything, what you want to use in the project. Now, that's one way, right, coming from the media browser. The other way is you could go directly from this point within the media browser to your sequence. So if you mouse click and drag this over, you could just drop this directly into your sequence, which is real handy, right? Very, very simple to do. Here, I'll undo that. I'll Command Z, undo that. You can do that with video. You can do that with a photo. It's all very straightforward and easy to do. But remember, once you've done that, I don't know if you noticed. Here, I'll do it again. Let's see if you've noticed. I'm going to mouse click and drag this over. Not only does it bring it into your sequence, but it also makes a copy of it up here, which means it's been imported. You properly imported. Even though you went straight to your sequence, you brought it in. You officially imported it, okay? There is one other thing, though, that I do want to bring to your attention, and that's the following. If I double click on an item, whether it's a photo or a video, double click on an item, it brings it into your source window. And you can play it and preview it and everything. It has not been imported yet, though. Keep that in mind. It has not been imported. So until you drag it down to your sequence, or until you drag it over into your project window, then it becomes imported. Okay, I want to make sure that you understand that. And of course, when you're done with one card, you go on to the next card, you keep going until you've got all your assets in your project, and then you can begin editing. The other way to import is you navigate up to the word File here at the top, mouse click and select Import. And then you can navigate over through that path, go to your external drive, go to your project folder. In my case, it's this Canon master folder. I'll click on the DCIM 100 Canon. There we go. And then I can click on one, or I can shift click on multiple, and then select import, and then that imports it into my project. All right. Another good way that you might like, actually, it's one of my favorites. If I navigate over to the drive, there it is. I'll move Premiere out of the way, double click on the drive. I can navigate back to that same folder, back to the Canon option, the DCIM 100 camera. If I want, look, I can mouse click and drag this whole thing over and drop that into my project window. And there it is. So if I close this out, let's close this out, and I'll move this over. Just like that, I'll put this back. I've imported all the contents of that folder into Premiere, and it's now a bin, which is real handy because this organizes things a little bit easier than dragging individual clips, which either way is good. And you can always create an additional bin, which I will show you in another lesson. But basically, you can create bins to manage all the individual clips that you brought in, or import the folder from your hard drive into Premiere, which turns it into a bin. And then at some point, you'll have multiple bins. That just speeds up your organization, and you can begin editing a little bit sooner. But those are the ways to properly import your assets into your Premiere project. And once you've done all that, you're now ready to continue your editing, and you're now ready for the next lesson as well.